Hi, my name is Riley Allen. This is my review of Season 1, Episode 23 of Trollhunters Tales of Arcadia, titled Wingmen. We start this episode off exactly where it left off, with Angor trying to give Strickler the absolute business. Because, he's got nothing less to lose. As he said, he's not insane, he's free. And Strickler decides to not go to his troll form. I feel like this is the situation where you switch from the fleshy, weak human to the rock-skinned troll form, which can fly. He proceeds to run his car off with Engelrot off a cliff, and again, his form has wings. He can fly. He chose to do this. We see him twice more throughout this episode. During the episode, middle of the episode, he talks to one of the other changelings. That weird dude who can change into anyone, Otto. And Otto's basically like, yeah, Engelrot's not after us, he's after you. That sounds like a big fat you problem. I'm not hearing I gotta care about this. So, he proceeds to basically drive off because, Strickler's basically in it for himself. I think he's also kind of in it for the changelings themselves as well, but he's mostly for Strickler. Gunmar last, and the changelings understood this, so they're like, yeah, you're not gonna work out, buddy. You take, either way, we win. If Engelrot kills you, we don't have to deal with you. If you kill Engelrot, that's even better. It's a win-win situation here. And then he appears at the end of the episode, basically groveling to Jim, basically like, help me, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean, I know I tried to kill you and all your friends, but please, I'm just a poor, helpless, innocent changeling. Also, if anything happens to me, your mother dies. Help me, please. So, the main part of the story is not Vendel, it's about Arg. This is Arg's episode. So, we get some great character development from Vendel. Like, he was this, stone. He wasn't so much cold, more so he was the leader. He's got to run this troll market. He's got to protect everybody. He doesn't know this human troll hunter, so we see him from that lens. Like, from his perspective, Jim is an outsider who isn't even not from his community, but any community. He's a human. He's not going to trust him until he proves himself. But once Jim has proven himself, he's like, Jim's the man. I trust my troll hunter. Jim is the man. He's going to get it done. And also, his relationship with Arg, like, trying to convince Arg to tell his friends about the Creeper Sun poison, and being like, well, that's that. So, another thing is they're trying to find the third and final Triumvirate Stone. The second one they stole last episode from Engelrot. Jim uses, and we eventually, in this episode, it turns into a shield. Like, the last one turned into 2 small daggers, this one turns into a shield. So, we get some more backstory on Arg. We find out that, he was not just a gum, but he was kidnapped from his people as a youngling, and that's why he can't really talk that well. Which makes me wonder, what were the other gums? Like, we later see some of them, and they all basically look similar. Was Arg just the exception? Like, were all the other gums one race, and then, I don't know. Anyway, we get that information, and then boom, Arg's people come up. So we get some... This is basically plot convenience because, you know, they live in the most underground parts for even trolls. So they're like, hey, that stone, that final stone, it's supposed to be deep underground. Do you got it? No, they don't. And honestly, she said, the queen says they don't have it, but they did have it, but it was stolen. So they also tell Arg that, you know, he can basically live out his centuries in the salt caves. Of course, plot convenience, nobody else can visit him because only the Krubera Arg species can survive down there. So, and she basically comes because apparently they could sense that one of their own was dying. Okay, yeah, there's that. And they basically say that they're going to have a game of Pyro Blitz, which is basically... And from this point on, this whole episode is basically a fast-tracked sports movie. You know, they got the main character, Arg. He's the underdog. You know, he doesn't think about himself too highly of himself until he comes in at the last second to win the game, which he does. And then you got Jim and Drawl basically coming up and getting their asses kicked until the final quarter when, or the final moments when Arg comes in, saves the day, and wins the game. It's basically every sports movie just crammed into 30 minutes, like 10, 15 minutes of a 30-minute episode. Just Trollhunter-fied, you know, they gotta get their own weapons. They have to earn their weapons, you know. And I do love that this kind of basically showcased that Jim didn't so much as need the armor. He just needed armor to protect himself. Like, he can still move. He still has the same agility without the armor. But, you know, the armor is basically like, you know, these guys are bigger than me. I don't want to die. Also, I did love that Jaw was like, alright, I'll take the big one, you take the little one. And before Jim could say it, I was like, which one's the little one? Because they were they were animated the exact same. I'd have found it funny, or maybe they weren't. Maybe it's a hidden joke that one is just this much smaller than the other. I don't think so though. But I don't think so because Drawl proceeds to say, yeah, it's hard to tell. Yeah, Drawl, it is hard to tell. That's why we asked you. So, back to Arg. He's, you know, trying to basically fumble around, trying to, you know, figure out what to do. He's hiding out. Toby comes in, you know, and this whole is basically the reason the episode is titled Wingmen, Toby and Arg, because that's what they're called, Wingmen. But I also kind of like the idea that it could also be a small little reference to Drawl and Jim, because they're basically like Toby and Arg Light, you know, or Toby and Arg Zero. Diet Toby and Arg. That's basically what they are. So Toby basically talks to Arg and basically talks about family, his Nana. Also, Nana's blindness conveniently comes up, so, you know, Arg is now Arthur's son from Japan. He's a foreign exchange student, which I guess, you know, okay, yeah. At the end of the episode, he finally reveals that he's dying of the Creeper Sun poison, and he chooses to go back to the Krubera caves, the salt caves, only to then end the episode off by showing up at Toby's being like, yeah, no, I'm gonna stick with my family. He's gonna help defeat Gunmar, and then Toby's like, then I'm gonna shove you in the salt caves myself. Overall, I really love this episode because it kind of ended the plot line of Arg hiding his sickness or his, you know, impending death. It gave us some more draw, which is really great because, Draw is one of my favorite characters. Now, he slowly became one of my favorite characters. It has given us more Vendel being a decent enough leader. Like, Vendel is actually a pretty good leader, and I feel like that's something very rarely shown in shows. You see in shows a leader actually being decent, or maybe because, it's such an easy little plot convenience. Oh, bumbling, it's so easy to have a bumbling leader because it helps the plot move forward or it gives easy jokes, but Vendel, while initially was there to help be the bad guy, but you can understand later on why he is the way he was in the earlier episodes, and now you get to see him basically be this grandfatherly figure, being to Arg, being like, yeah, Jim's my guy. I trust my troll hunter, which is something he would never say in episode 1. I'm assuming next episode is gonna focus on Strickler, due to how it ended with Strickler begging Jim to protect him. So I think this is gonna be Strickler, maybe them attempting to separate the curse from Strickler and Barbara. Overall, I'd rate this episode about a 7. 7.5. It was 7 or 7.5. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.